Apologies for absence, and I've had apologies from Councillor Nunn, who's being substituted by Councillor King. Are there any other apologies? Item 2, declaration of members' interests. Our second item you may include an interest if you're a member of an organisation that has received a grant as part of this scheme. So you should declare that if that is you. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Burrell.
Thurmby and Bushby Parish Council got a grant, so I'm a parish councillor with Thurmby and Bushby.
Thank you.
Same with me, Scott.
And Councillor Elliott as well. Thank you. Anybody else? Item 3, portfolio holder update. I'll now invite Councillor Galton to present his planning portfolio update, and then following the update, I'll invite members of the panel to ask him any questions they have on the content of his update.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. Welcome to the panel. Nice of you to ask me to come along, give an update on the portfolio activities within the planning portfolio. Some members will obviously know if you're on the local plan panel or the planning committee, but I will go through it anyway. So the first one's on development management. The planning committee last met on the 14th of October, considered 2 applications, one land to the south of Lawton Road, Lubenham, proposed residential development, and the other on land at 8 Farms, Moorbarns Lanes, Lutterworth. Both applications were refused. To update on preparation of the new local plan, good progress is being made with technical and partnership work. This includes working through any outstanding concerns respondents to the public consultation have with the draft local plan. The aim being that when the plan comes to members of the Cabinet and then full council for consideration in the spring, and then if it's approved by council, it would be submit the plan for public examination to the planning inspector in the new year, and any remaining concerns would need to be properly addressed by then. At the last advisory panel, we had a long discussion about infrastructure, and there was concern from all sides of the panel about infrastructure being absolutely critical to this and how that's going to be got from developers. And we are doing a piece of work on the possibility of moving to a SIL. Now I can say more about that if members want to know, but a SIL is basically a tariff-based system. It's different to what we have at the moment, which is Section 106, and the council has engaged consultants to look at SIL, the pros and cons. The critical issue being is, will SIL bring us in higher levels of infrastructure? You don't have to put everything into a SIL. You could still have some things that were part of 106. Obviously, the critical one is highways infrastructure improvements to mitigate the impacts of development. So that piece of work is going through the system, and it will come to scrutiny and it will come to Cabinet next year. We want to try and align it with the local plan. It would need a separate approval process, which I understand includes external examination. But obviously we would want to be in a position to indicate, if we're going with a SIL, what the benefits of that would be as part of the local plan. So going back to where we are in terms of the briefing, work is ongoing to address any of the outstanding representations, setting out the concerns on the draft local plan. Regular meetings are taking place with interested parties, so the plan is ready for consideration by members when it comes back to councillors for consideration to submit to the independent examiner in the new year. Hard work continues in the development management service, working on an increasing number of complex planning applications, often for residential development, mainly because the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing sites. In those circumstances, developers will submit what are anecdotally termed speculative planning applications, which we all know what they are and what form they take. and they'll be doing that in the interest of boosting the council's land supply ahead of the new local plan being adopted. So yeah, we are absolutely aware of that. Mark Patterson in development management is now maintaining a spreadsheet broke down into locations, so one for Market Harborough, one for Lutterworth area, and so on and so forth in each of the different sub areas of the local plan. That is being sent out. There were some questions about on a recent briefing that perhaps some members hadn't received that, but I've received assurances that that goes to all members every month. You can see where we are on the local plan sites, because some developers or landowners are taking those forward. They're not waiting for the local plan to be adopted. They're moving to planning applications. And it also shows you the ones that are not in the local plan that are just coming through as applications. So I think that's an important additional piece of information to enable members to monitor it. Technical work is ongoing on the review of the council's open space management policy, with the results expected early in the new year. Alongside this work, a policy that will integrate with a new framework policy proposed in the new local plan is being drawn up to give effect to the results of the open space strategy review work. So members will be aware that that is looking ahead of what we're going to do in the future about open space. In the past, it's been, the presumption's been, well, the default position has been that it's transferred to private management. We've actively asked the officers to, with the consultants, to explore, is there another way of doing this? Is there a choice? I've heard various descriptions of this, including fleasehold and so on. And we do get a lot of criticism about some of these private management arrangements. So there's two aspects to this. One is looking at future applications, but members have also asked to look at where it's happened. Is there anything we can now do about it? In my opinion, that is much more difficult to go back and undo what's already been done, but the piece of work will include that. Key decisions coming forward, well, mostly referred to them, the open space and spaces strategy will come forward to members for a review, including this scrutiny panel in the new year. Members will be able to consider and comment on the findings and the emerging policy approach. Work is also ongoing to establish the extent to which the council introducing developer contributions. So I dealt with that in terms of the possibility of still. We'll move on. And that again will come to scrutiny in cabinet. Now, finally then, a very topical issue at the minute, which I asked officers today for an update on, which a number of members will be aware about, is the enforcement situation at Woodway Lane, Claybrook Parva. And I know there's a considerable amount of interest in this from the community. So I'm going to read the statement that I've been given on this, so it can be really clear and accurate. I can now provide you with an update on the council's current position relating to the land at Woodway Lane in Claybrook Parva. As you know, a temporary stop notice was served on the afternoon of Saturday, the 27th of September, which required the landowners occupiers to immediately cease the unauthorised change of use of the land for the purposes of residential, gypsy and traveller site, including no further caravans or mobile homes to be placed on the land, and any associated unauthorised operational development on land, including the importation of materials, to cease. As you'll be aware, that TSN has not been complied with. At the same time, a planning application has been received for change of use of the land to 9 traveller pitches, including associated access and works. It's a retrospective reference, and if you want the reference, I can give you that. It's expected that this will be a planning committee decision. The council has received a number of emails regarding the application and the steps taken to validate it. The site is in fact larger than the 055 HA, and the wrong box was ticked on the application form. However, the council's head of development management took the view that this would make no material difference to the ultimate consideration of the planning application, and the same processes would be followed irrespective. It was judged that the public interest in progressing the application outweighed delaying the validation of the application to correct these mistakes. The council would take the same approach with any other applicant, and as such is being entirely consistent with its approach to validation management. For clarity, the date of validation is always the date when the application is submitted to the council, which was Friday prior to the activities taking place on the Saturday. Since the initial reports of the incursion, the council's legal team and the council's head of enforcement have been working with external partners to seek further legal advice, which we have now received and discussed internally. Additional clarification on a number of technical points was required, hence the delay in providing this further. So now I'm going to give you what I think most people probably don't know. So it has been agreed that the council's intention to apply to the courts for an interim injunction. We are hopeful that the documents to support this can be submitted this week. Now, I need to clarify at this point that an interim injunction, if granted, will only have the effect of stopping any further development on the site. It will not allow the council to clear the site, and anyone living there at this stage as a live planning application is yet to be determined by the council and potentially a planning inspector. If an interim injunction is granted and served, it will require that no further caravans or mobile homes are brought onto the site for residential occupation, and no further operational development is carried out. In effect, it will freeze the status quo. If planning permission is not granted by the planning committee or at any future appeal, the council can return to the court for a mandatory injunctive relief, which would potentially result in the clearance and eviction of the site. We'll continue to update members and the community as the matter progresses. Thank you very much, Chairman. Sorry that was quite long, but there is a lot going on in planning.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Simon, for your statement. Is that going to be circulated to all councillors following the meeting,
Yeah, it's sort of hot off the press this today, but we can
including your report? Because
yes,
yeah, okay,
can
that's
arrange
great.
that.
So I made a few notes. Obviously, it would have been helpful if we'd had a written report, but I do appreciate the up-to-date information about the injunctive relief. There's a number of things. So first of all, just to clarify then about the SIL. So when we had the local plan advisory meeting, you said that the SIL is if any application gets approved before the SIL comes into operation, that basically it's not retrospective, and therefore if an application gets approved and for whatever reason then they can't then be required to pay SIL after the fact, later on.
Well, I think it's through you, Chairman. I think that's what Tess Nelson confirmed.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm just clarifying for those. Just a bit curious as to why you've brought the enforcement update to this meeting rather than taking it to the planning meeting. But anyway, I get that.
This is today's decision. It wasn't available on
that's
Tuesday.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Just talking about the 5-year housing supply, at the last meet of the other week, you said, it was said that we'd get that in October. It is October. Any ideas when we're going to get the 5-year housing supply?
Through you, Chair, my understanding is it's still intention to publish that by the end of the month.
By the end of this month, okay. Thank you.
I will check, but
That'll be very grateful. Well, I appreciate October's got 31 days in it. And the only other thing I just wanted to touch on is, now I'm grateful for you clarifying and confirming the council's going to seek an injunctive relief against the transgression at Woodway Lane, but I'm also conscious that the council has also got injunctive relief against other sites, the other end of Welham Lane, which touches on the Kibworths and I think the Neville ward. and that the people who are there have got until, I think one of them's later this year to move out. So I'm just wondering, does the council have a plan? Because if you go past there, there's not much activity of anyone clearing the site. So I'm just wondering, is the council got a plan to deal with that? If come December, I believe one of the dates, the occupants have decided to stay put and not clear the site. Because there are two or three, I think it's two, that are down there, and it is, a concern. I think that's the best thing to say. Thank you.
So through your chair, so that Wellingham, was that the one that went to appeal, and then there was support of the
I
council?
think there's one that went to appeal and they lost it.
Yeah.
I think one's called Wild. Is it called Wildwood Farm or something? Yeah. There's two. They're kind of next to each other, I think.
So obviously the inspectors set a time frame for the use to cease and the site to be cleared. We have to wait and see if they comply with that. I'm not sure, I don't know whether CAT can help it. I'm not sure if we then have to return to the court and say that the court's decision has not been fulfilled or implemented, or whether we can go straight to action. I think that we will definitely want to involve partners in that decision, particularly the multi-agency traveller unit, which we're a member of, obviously. And I imagine that we would want to have discussions with the police, but I'm sure Kat can explain more about what process if the injunction is not complied with.
Yes, I'm not familiar with the exact details of the case, having not dealt with it myself, but in terms of the action open to us, if we are using an injunction as the means of taking action, then that does require us to go back to court. If we are using a planning enforcement notice, then we can take direct action without needing to go back to the court. So what we would do is work with our legal team to determine which is the most expedient course of action, depending on what's in place, but also just to advise members that we have very recently established a new internal officer working group, a mobile homes site working group, where we are proactively going to be on a monthly basis reviewing all such sites where there are plans in place for things that need to happen to make sure we can pull the requisite teams together to review these cases regularly. So we are aware that there are a number of similar sort of situations, apologies, across the district, not just for traveller sites, but the sort of enforcement breaches as well. So we will be reviewing those on a regular basis, if that helps provide a bit of assurance.
Well, thanks for that, Kat. We did used to have such a working group some while ago. Obviously, that got disbanded for a variety of reasons. So I believe it's Stable View and Cozy Corner, Bowden Lane, it's actually called. And as I understand, the appeals were dismissed at the beginning of this year. The compliance date for one of them is vacation of site 9th of January. And the other one is for buildings by the 9th of April next year. And the other one was appealed to the inspectorate, who was due to, as I understand, doing a site visit in May this year. So I'm just wondering, if that's part of what you're referring to. I've got an email from our former head of enforcement dated April this year with information. I can forward it back to you if you wish, but that should be, that was copied into the current head of enforcement, so obviously they should know about it. So I'm just wondering though, what are we going to be taking a firm stance on this, actually getting this sorted out, because this, aside from the fact it's a blot on the landscape, and it's not an appropriate location for all sorts of reasons for any sort of developments. It also happens to be not a million miles away from the plot of land that you've spent the money on buying to rewild 500 acres. So I'm just making the point, it's immediately adjoined.
Isn't this in Councillor Rickman's?
Yeah, it is. It is, but it kind of touches on, because it has an impact.
I think Councillor Rickman was asking similar questions to planning enforcement, and I think I've seen a reply to him. So I'll check that out. So I think the ward member has been advised what we're doing. But as Kat has said, there will be an officer group. What you're clearly wanting is that we don't get to the date and then we think about what we're going to do.
Exactly.
By
Because
that date, we've already got a plan of action.
well, we
ready.
need a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, take point taken.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you need me to, would you like me to send this to you? That's fine, I'll do that, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Yes, I think we've got to take a hard stance on these things, else otherwise it's just going to carry on. We've got to be really hard, I think.
Councillor Wellband.
Thank you very much. It's just on the local plan, specifically Stop the New Town, who I had an email from a few weeks ago, upset about the fact that replies, I think they had organised, had come as, I think it was been lumped as one, as a petition rather than individual replies. And I just wondered whether that's now been resolved, or is the council still planning to consider it as one petition? Thank you.
So through your chair, we went through this in considerable detail at the local plan advisory. No, I appreciate that. The head of plan of policy went into a lot of detail and explained the regulations associated with the Reg 19 consultation and the way we have to treat representations. I won't go into that now, but I think the best thing is if I either get those minutes for you circulated to you or ask her to write to you and explain how that's being dealt with. It is complicated, but we found a form of words that I think the Stop the Town group, I won't say they're happy, but is acceptable to them, the way those 2,300 people who signed the petition, how it is being dealt with. But to be clear, the regulations that that petition is treated as one representation. It then needs to go on to refer to it has been accepted, submitted by all those people. And the other point that was clarified, I think, in answer to a question by Councillor King, is that are they then all registered and on the list potentially to make further representations at the examination in public? Obviously, it won't work if 2,300 people come and the inspector wouldn't allow it. But the answer to that is that it's at the inspector's discretion, but potentially they all could be asked to be considered. What will happen in practice is the inspector will say, go away and find 2 or 3 of you who can speak on particular issues and bring together your representation as a whole.
Any more comments, questions, queries for Councillor Galton? No. Thank you, Councillor Galton, for that update. Let's move on then to item 4 on the agenda, which is the minutes from the last meeting, the public minutes of the last meeting held on the 24th of July 2025. Is there any comments or queries about the accuracy of these minutes, or are you happy for me to sign them as a true record? Okay, that takes us on to item 5 of the agenda, to review the outcomes of the community grants given in the first year of operation. I'd like to invite Councillor Asher to present the report as the relevant portfolio holder.
Thank you, Chair. So as per the papers, the focus of this item is to review the outcomes of the grants given in the first year of operation, thereby understanding the success of the fund. Background to this is in February 2024, the Council agreed to provide a £1 million community grant fund. In June 2024, the Services and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Panel reviewed the criteria for the grant, and in July 2024, Cabinet agreed the criteria, allocation and process for awarding the community grants. During the first year, 68 different community groups and parish councils across 39 parishes have been awarded funding to enable the delivery of local projects and initiatives. At the close of the first year of the scheme, £870,495 has been allocated, with a further £55,882 due to be considered by the Cabinet Subcommittee grants on the 25th of November this year. That would leave a deficit of 73,623 underspent. In February 2025, Council approved the extension of the £1 million Community Grant Fund for a further 2 years, which will cover 2025-26 and 2026-27. The funding and process for year 2 opened in September 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Asher. So I'll open this up to the panel. You can make comments, ask questions on the report, and then at the end of the discussion, there is an opportunity to develop some recommendations to be presented to Cabinet if you or if we wish to do so. Anybody would like to kick things off? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks for the report. Sorry if it's already in there, but what happens to the underspend? Can we carry it over? What does it go?
So the underspend at the moment can be applied for. It'll become a pot of its own, and it can be applied for by groups that cover the whole of the district, because at the moment there isn't really anything that they can apply for. And it can also be applied for by parishes that haven't applied in the first round. I'm right in saying that, aren't I, Becky? So if there's a parish that hasn't applied, they can apply for what they could have had originally, plus what they're getting in the next year. So it does give us another pot for the people that do cover a wider area than just one parish.
Did you want to add anything to that, Becky?
Hi everyone. For anyone who hasn't met me, I'm Becky Nixon. I'm Community Engagement Manager, so I manage the grant officers that distribute this. Yeah, that's pretty much right. So any of the parishes that haven't received any allocation at all, which is perhaps some of the small parishes that weren't able to apply, we've got a couple potentially carried over from last year, and also any parish that hasn't used its full allocation. So a parish might have spent a little bit of the allocation, but not all of it.
Sorry, can I just ask an additional one? Is there any time limit on that money? Does it have to be spent within a certain period, or is it held within like a trust fund? I'm just aware that we've had a previous issue with the Harbour District Leisure Trust, didn't we? But I don't know if that's a completely separate. Obviously, I know that's got nothing to do with this, but as a scrutiny panel, we are aware of pots of money being held and how they get spent and things like that. So that's why I'm asking about that.
It's held within the council, so it's within the council budget. So I think if it hasn't been spent, so there's a round open at the moment, there's a further grants committee in March. I think if it hasn't been spent by the end of the financial year, it'll be reviewed then in terms of decisions. But that will be something that subcommittee grants looks at and decides.
Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, although it's a little bit light on information I think we should be looking for. So what I think we should be looking for is to understand how much our grant money, that's taxpayers' money that's being put out there, how much is that actually leveraged in additional funding by some of these groups? Is it providing 100% of funding, or is it leveraging additional investment by other grant holders? Now, I know at an individual grant application level that's considered, but we have got no summation here of what we've actually achieved. What does this £1 million actually managed to do about these, has it actually helped leverage other investment from other groups? Because I think that's really important to understand that, rather than are we just the funder of first resort and last resort, which I'm not. And that's a concern. The second thing I've still got a concern about, and this isn't my concern, this is concerns that have been expressed to me. And in fact, I was at a parish council meeting that has been given a grant only the other day, and they expressed to me that the process is actually confusing for them and it's actually complicated. That's not what I think. I've not been involved in applying for the process. This is what they told me. And they were of the view that it was overly complex. And they're not the only ones. Others have said the same. So I'm wondering if these are matters that can be looked at. I appreciate the new round is open, but again, I've had comment and feedback from parishes in my area that they weren't absolutely aware that the new round of grant had actually opened. They were under the impression that it hadn't. And then finally, Chair, the other thing is we've got a differential in approach by some of the parish councils. Some of them have been, shall we say, fairly open, and so they've invited bids in from the community groups within their area and then sought to divvy it out to those that, obviously come through the door. Others have regarded it as money for them, for their organisation, to do with what they wish. Now, those two things are not the same, and they have a different outcome. And I do think that is something that I hope the Cabinet, I know there's a number of them here tonight, and this is the concern I have, is that essentially it's just another funding stream for parish councils who can actually levy a charge on their residents through their council tax. They may not want to, but they can do. And instead, what we're doing is giving them money to sort of from other sources so they don't have to do that. Whereas the actual community groups that could apply for funding are being locked out and sort of almost stopped from applying. And yes, we've got the ward member fund, but the ward member fund minimum level is £1,000. And for quite a number of groups, that is too much. For them, it's just too big a sum for them to actually spend. We need grants that are at a smaller level than that, in the hundreds of pounds for some of them. This has the potential to do that, but what we've seemed to have done is handed the administration to parish councils. And then finally, Chair, I'll keep mentioning it because it's not been sorted out, is the unequitable distribution, in particular for the Kibworth ward and the Kibworth parishes. 70k to share between them, yet other communities of similar size get 70k each. And I do think that is inequitable. So I know it's not going to change because I've been told that before, but it's on the record and they know that I've raised it yet again because they'll ask me at the next meeting I go to if we've raised it. Thank you, Chair.
I'd also like to echo that last point as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor King. Quite a lot to unpack there, and obviously we do have an opportunity at the end to condense some of that down and put it down as feedback and recommendations. Councillor Ashley, did you want to come in?
Yes, please. Yeah, in answer to Councillor King's questions, he's asking what has it funded? Are you talking about has it funded things combined with other grants, or are you talking about what has it actually funded?
Well, okay, without me going through every individual bid, so for example, we've got 887,000 that we've put out there at the moment. So what's that actually leveraged in? Has that resulted in 1.6 million in total spend? Has there been £3 million in total spend by all the grants we've given? What's the total sum that we've actually in total of these organisations spent on all the projects we've actually funded? Or are we just the total funding for all these projects?
I think to answer your question, it's a variety of things. I mean,
We must know that information then, surely.
Some organisations come to us and ask for grants to top up some Section 106 money. Some organisations come to us to top up something that they've already got some funding for themselves. So it's a whole mixture of things, and everyone is welcome to come to the grants committee to listen to what these communities are doing and to learn about the difference that these grants are making in the community. I haven't seen yourself at any of these, but you are welcome to come along should you want to come
Just
along.
hang fire, Councillor King.
It's okay.
So that I think that sort of answers that. It is a combination of different things. Some people apply just for the community funds. Some people apply for 106 money combined with the community funds. And there's projects out there that just simply wouldn't happen without these grants. So, it's very important that these grants are going out there to these different organisations that can't get funding from anywhere else. And then moving on to your
Councillor Ashford, 1 second. Do you mind if I just bring Becky Dixon in?
no.
It's a really good question, actually, and we haven't done that analysis, but we certainly could do that analysis. So I think we've got a mix. So obviously we're funding some very small groups for reasonably small amounts, in which case we probably are giving the total funding to them. But in many cases we have match funds. So we've had quite a few that are match fund, obviously with Section 106, but also the Magna Park Fund. We've had one over, it might be around kind of Ashby, Claybrook sort of way, that I think a local garage put a bit of money in. We've had quite a lot paid through reserves. We've had some with sports funds. So it definitely isn't, we definitely have been, we ask for our community grant to be the last amount of funding that we give. So we definitely have topped things up, and it's an interesting question actually for us. So we will do that analysis.
Thank you, Becky.
Councillor Ash, if you'd like to continue, and I'll come to yourself, Councillor Mahal.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and to hear that your parish council is saying that the process is complicated. I know that there has been grant surgeries, and I know that Becky and the team are on hand to help people. I know they have helped people in my parishes. So there is always help available if people are finding it difficult. And I think the parish councils were all sent an email, if I'm right, Becky, to say that the new grants are now open, and it's also gone out on the newsletter.
Yeah, it has. I think it might have got lost for some of them because it went out in a general parish liaison email. So we were talking about that today. So it is possible that some of them have missed it.
So we can do another email shot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I do sympathise with what you're saying about parish councils. Some of them are a bit sort of taking control of it, and we are sort of looking out for that. And I think if there's any groups that are struggling, let them contact their ward members, let them contact the officers, and we can look into that if people are struggling to get these grants because their parish councils aren't allowing them to apply. It is on our radar to keep an eye on that. And I think that sort of covers all the questions. I know you've said about the 70,000 jointly for the Kibworths, but as far as I know, we're not changing the money side of it this time.
Councillor Mahal.
Yeah, excuse me, I've got a funny throat, so excuse my voice. You mentioned top up of Section 106. Was that originally mooted as part of the community grant?
Yes, it was in the original information that the community grant could be used to top up other things. Can I just add as well? We've reviewed the process each time, so we do recognise that, especially the group of people we're working with, it can be quite complicated. We've gone out and done quite a lot of surgeries. We did a survey. We've taken some comments at parish meetings and things like that. So we have made tweaks in between each of them, but we're always happy to take suggestions. We've had really positive feedback about the grants officers. So it's Katie Fox to begin with, but now it's Claire Betts and Soretta Morris, always available on the phone to kind of help out. And we've tried as well to get out to groups in different areas to speak to them directly, not just through the parish councils. So at the last grants committee, we had an application from somebody who we came to as a result of one of the grants officers stopping in a car park and looking at a notice on a village hall window and getting in touch directly. So, we've done what we can, obviously, to work with parish councils, and, they're our kind of key group, but also to work directly with organisations. And I think there have been a couple of things at grants committee that have gone back because grants committee has felt that the organisation hasn't consulted the community, and it's always something that we put in the grants reports. Have we done an exhaustive, as far as possible, trawl of who else might be interested in an application? So we do that as part of the assessment.
Thank you, Becky. Councillor Wellband.
Yes, thank you very much. And I also kind of share those concerns that parish councils are effectively being gatekeepers to this money and using it for themselves. And I just wondered, these grant surgeries that you mentioned, how many actual community groups, I don't expect to have the figure now, but how many community groups as opposed to parish councils went to those surgeries. And also, I know this is a few years ago now, but this council during COVID maintained a database of various voluntary groups. Now, I appreciate that's 5 years ago. I just wondered whether that list or a list of voluntary groups exists where we can get this message out to them directly rather than through parish councils. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I would say this is just off the top of my head. I think it's probably about half and half parish councils and other groups, but I can certainly do that analysis and let you know. Yeah, I can let you know that. So yeah, we inherited a whole load of different lists that came from various places. And when I started just over a year ago, we did a complete trawl of everything. Obviously, we were concerned about GDPR, whether we had permission to message people. And so we cleaned those lists, and we now have the newsletter that goes out to around about 300 subscribers. A lot of those obviously parish councils, voluntary groups and things like that, and we try to publicise that to as many groups as possible. Obviously we can only send things to people who we've kind of got consent to after initially sending an email to the team to tell them information. But again, if there are ways that you can think of to kind of circulate that so we can build that list, that would be great.
Councillor King?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Becky. So a couple of things. So first of all, just on your last point, I think I can help you. I would have thought we're working with VAL, Voluntary Action Leicestershire on this. They've certainly got a very large, sorry?
Called Basil.
No, it's called VAL. Oh.
Basil's just Leicester. It's Voluntary Action South Leicester.
With the greatest respect, VAL operates across Leicester and Leicestershire. Okay, it does have a list of all voluntary groups. Basil is a subgroup, separate organisation. But anyway, let's not split hairs about that. They're kind of a degree of overlap. The point is, the point I want to come back to is, if we're handing taxpayers' money out, we need to make sure, and I'm not disputing the fact that many groups have been and they've been successful. What I'm trying to understand, and I think we should be trying to understand, is how much our investment of taxpayers' money, because it's an investment in the community, has leveraged in total. So, if we're putting in £10,000 into something, is that, okay, I don't need to break it down project by project in this report, but in total, have we got a summation? If that 10 grand we put in and the project was 40 grand, we know that in total we've helped bring to fruition a 40 grand project. But at the moment, all I know is, well, we've put in 887,000. I don't know what the total amount that we've helped get invested has been, because obviously without our money, some of these projects, as has already been said, probably wouldn't have happened. So I'm just trying to understand that, and I think that would be quite an important thing for us to understand from a value for money, best value thing, that actually what we're doing is is actually delivering not just your perceived community benefits, but is actually value for money. Because at the minute, giving money to a parish council that can raise the money itself, I'm not sure is value for money. Not really, because they can raise it already from local residents rather than us giving them the money through a grant to repair tarmac or whatever it is they're doing. So I'm just a bit concerned that some of the money is being spent on things which could have been funded by the very organisations themselves, rather than on groups that haven't got access to any other source of funding because for a variety of reasons. And that is maybe, what should be thought about, rather than just handing money to parishes and saying, well, you process, you kind of filter who applies. And there has been, situations where that has definitely happened, and groups have been disencouraged to apply, if I can put it like that. I can't go into specifics, but I know it's happened. Okay, thank you.
That's an interesting comment, Councillor King. Councillor Asher, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, you keep saying, Councillor King, about taxpayers' money. Taxpayers are actually benefiting from these grants because things are being improved in the community. And, you know, you keep saying, what are we getting as a return of investment? We're not investing in things. We're giving out grants to make better of the community. And every application that comes in is rigorously checked. Every application has on it, how much is the project going to cost? How else are they funding it? Every single application, if you go back to through the paperwork for the grants committee, you can look at it all for yourself. It's all there in black and white. There's nothing being hidden. You know, it is all rigorously checked. We're not just standing on the streets handing out £10 notes to anybody. You know, it is all being checked, and taxpayers are benefiting. Every time we'd have a grants committee, people are coming in here saying to us, we wouldn't have been able to do this without these grants. You know, it's heartwarming to hear the stories, to see it for yourself. I really recommend that you come and sit in the chamber when there's another grants committee and see for yourself and listen to the people and the community people of what they're saying, and listen instead of talking. Sometimes it's better than you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth.
If I may, Chair, I'm going to ignore those personal barbs. I don't think that was required at all. I'm not, as already said, I'm not disputing the fact that some of the organisations on here, but if I'll just go through the list, if you now mentioned it now, Bilston Parish Council could have raised council tax. Thorpe Parish Council could have raised council tax. Burton Overy Parish Council could have raised council tax. I can go on and on. Parish council after parish council, they've got revenue raising powers. Okay, may not want to use them, but they've got them, and you're just handing money over for them to spend on their own little pet projects instead of, and it might be an improvement for them, but why am all the residents of the district contributing to, I'm just going to pick on a random one, but, you know, Claybrook Magna Parish Council, why are we doing that? If, you know, am I getting a real benefit from that? I'm not getting a benefit from that. The residents in that area are getting a benefit from it. So why shouldn't they pay for it through their council tax? Now, if you want to get, you know, and to be fair, Chair, we all have an obligation, a legal duty to get best value. It's not, you know, no laughing matter. It's best value for council taxpayers' money. It is their money. It's not my money. Some of it's your money, but it's all, you know, cumulatively. And so we should be showing, and I'm not going to go through every single application. I do read the reports, but the point I'm getting at is just as a summation. I'm not looking for a detailed. I just think as a summation, you know, we're spending 887, whatever it is. So are we not able to say, well, that generated 1.6, and it is an investment in the community. If someone's buying a bench, it's an investment. It's not something they're just getting for this week, is it? They're having it there for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years, however long it is. So, you know, that's what I think. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing for us to, you know, we've got all the information, quite simple for the, you know, it's in a spreadsheet, someone to just press the summation button and sum it up. And in this report, we could have had that information instead of going backwards and forwards. And there's nothing in this that is, but you know, the point is that if parish council just handed the money and they can do with it what they want, quite a number of them are just spend it on projects that they want to do rather than necessarily what the community wants. That's my point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. So I'm going to ask Kat to come in, and then I will go to yourself, Councillor Mahal, and then I will go to you, Councillor Taylor, and then I will go to you, Councillor Elliott. So Kat, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think there's some good discussion being had, as I'm sure everyone agrees. I'm just trying to capture this for sort of as we come on to perhaps start talking about recommendations. So I think, as Becky said earlier, I think it would be a good exercise in governance and quite prudent to calculate what additional funding that the grants may have generated, and we can certainly do that, and we'll take that away. We will do that anyway, although you might want to think about that as a formal recommendation, you know, as when we do come to wrap up on this item. Also hearing potential recommendation around, would you like Cabinet to consider parish councils not being eligible for community grant funding in the future. So I'm picking that up as another potential suggestion as well. So I'm just sort of trying to keep us on track with the potential recommendations and debate so far. So keeping a note of that, and back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Councillor Mahal.
Thanks for that, Kat. Well, I was just going to say that the grants, when they were initially mooted, were they for freebie grants to sort of help parishes out because they're poor and whatever, or was it grants for the sake of grants, which were going to sort of bring benefits to the community, which would be evidenced as outcomes? So, yeah, that's basically.
Thank you. Yeah, they're basically community grants. They are, for the whole community. So for community groups and for parish council. I think we gave the parish councils the chance to apply to try and administer it to keep it a bit neater, wasn't it? Because I think if you were getting applications from all sorts of different groups, it gets a bit complicated. But I think I understand what people are saying about our parish councils gatekeeping it, and we have got to be careful with that. But I think we are sort of trying to get out there and reach out to different groups, and we have had a lot of different individual groups apply, haven't we? Not just parish councils.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the issues is because it's a capital grant, it may only be the parish council in that area that actually has things, especially in some of the small areas, that has things that are eligible. I mean, there may be a village hall, there may be a sports club, and some groups have applied for equipment for bits and pieces. But I think if you've got a capital grant, it does mean that it goes often to areas that, have assets, that have halls, that have playgrounds, that have sports equipment. And so I think that is perhaps in some instances why it has gone to parish councils rather than elsewhere, because there are smaller groups that are doing things, but often it isn't capital funding that they're looking for.
Councillor Mahal, did you want to come back?
Yeah, I just wanted to actually agree on that. Agree on that, because I did get queries on applications for something other than capital. So it does put some organisations off. I feel that looking at some of the lists, it just seems the same old applying for some of the funds. So it would be nice to see some other organisations going for it, just to be made easier.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I'm aware, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion on this tonight, and some of it has been a bit repetitive, but I suppose just coming back to your point, Councillor King, about outcomes, because this is the first year, isn't it? This is our chance for feedback of that, to make improvements, not just to sit and criticise. So I suppose in terms of thinking about outcomes of impact on the community, from a sort of research perspective, I imagine that's quite hard because all the groups are quite different. So having outcome measures of impact on community is going to be quite varied. But I would have thought there would be some way of getting some feedback from the groups, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, and then that can be brought back to council. That might allay some fears, as well as your kind offer to go and look at the more statistical side of things. But feedback from the groups is normally pretty standard, so I'm not sure what all the worry is about, but that would have been part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we monitor things depending on kind of what it is and what we've given out. So every organisation has to fill in a monitoring form. They have to send us a report. They have to send us pictures or whatever, as well as all like the financial detail. But we've also started visiting organisations as well. So obviously, so this afternoon, a couple of officers went out to Turlangton to see their new table tennis tables, which is something that brings the village together. It gives young people something to do. Yesterday, they went out to have a look at Kidworth Village Hall steps and the improvements that have been made there. And when they go out, we're not just kind of talking about, has this been done? We are talking about what impact has it had on your community? What do you want to do? What are your needs to feed into other projects as well? So actually, we have found it massively valuable as a route into parish councils to build that engagement, to talk to people about what they want. You know, and we've started to come up with a whole load of things really that hopefully the team will work with people on, and also to start to make more suggestions on what we're hearing about the things that will make the most difference. We're at the early stages. Obviously, we're just at the end of the first year at the moment, so we are collecting those sort of things. But we'd certainly love to produce an impact report around some of the things that have happened, and we also intend to follow some of them up after, you know, a period of months as well. So it's not just, you know, did your table tennis table arrive and did you put it together, but has it increased the number of people who are coming in? You know, what have you learned that you'd recommend to other areas as well? So we definitely want to pick things up and then, you know, bringing people together. I think one of the things that they've said at Grants Committee is they hear things that are going on in other parishes and it's ideas for them and they can pick it up as well. So I think that kind of sharing ideas across the district is what we're keen to do. We do put bits in our newsletter. You know, we appreciate our newsletter's long, not everybody reads it, but, you know, we are building up those case studies of where things have happened and we know which parishes have done what, so that people can contact other people and you know, share practice and stuff.
Councillor Elliott.
Yes, just to answer Councillor King's question, one of them anyway, parish councils can't just raise money willy-nilly. People wouldn't stand for it. These grants give the parish council a chance to do things that otherwise wouldn't get done. That's...
Would anybody else like to make any other comments on this? Councillor Burrell.
You're looking through the list from page 15. It's definitely not all parish councils. There's a huge range of voluntary organisations, village halls, bowls clubs, cricket clubs, all sorts of people have gained benefit from these grants. And I think it's important to say that these grants have done an awful lot of good for the community this year. And I think they're going to for the next year or two if they're still around. I think it would be a good idea for the grants people to do a sort of précis of each grant that they've given, just to point out the benefit to the community of these grants, especially the big grants. I don't agree that it's just parish councils. It may be a couple of parish councils perhaps in your ward, Councillor King, but certainly a lot of these are scouts and educational foundations, village halls, all sorts of things that have had money from the grants to do things. Computers, floor cleaner, for instance, for Great Glen Village Hall, bowls mats, storage facilities, paths, all sorts of things. And I think it's important to point that out, that it isn't just parish councils. And I hope that more of these smaller organisations can be encouraged to fill in their applications next time. Perhaps even more help from the officers would be useful. Perhaps encourage parish councils to have their own little mini grant surgeries in the next year, and with help perhaps from the officers. I'm certainly going to make sure my parish council will, because they had the full grant this time, but next time they're definitely going to try and encourage organisations from the village to apply, because it is actually quite hard getting through to them. That there's this money around and they've just got to fill a form in and then talk to the ward councillors about it. But definitely it's been a really good year for everybody. And I can't see why people are complaining about it so much. That's my opinion.
Well, I'm actually I'm a big fan of the community grant scheme myself, and as councillor for Great Bowden Arden Ward, I've supported some very good projects such as Harbour Theatre and Harbour FM. So I do echo those comments. However, this of course is a scrutiny panel. Feedback is important. Even something that we like, we can accept needs tweaking. It doesn't have to be considered necessarily a complaint. So with that, I'm satisfied that everybody's had a bite of the cherry. I want to bring this discussion to a close, which means I believe Ella has been making some notes on our recommendations. Now, ultimately, these are recommendations that go to Cabinet. They're not necessarily bound by these things, and we don't even necessarily need to vote on the recommendations unless there's a disagreement about a certain recommendation. But Ella, are you happy to summarise?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So I've just got sort of three recommendations that seem to have sort of come up across the room. The two that Kat mentioned earlier. So one of them being that officers investigate what the community grant fund has leveraged in the community and report back to the panel, just so you guys are getting that information to have a look at. Either it can be reported to you at another meeting, or it can be circulated to you via email, and you can ask sort of informally of those officers any further questions, completely up to you. We had that second one, which is the Cabinet review whether parish councils should be eligible for further community grants at the next available opportunity. And then the third one, just on that last conversation that you're having around the community impact and getting that quantitative data from the applicants. So I've said at the nearest availability, the panel receive a report on the medium term of community impact of the grant. So sort of within the last year or two. So it's not that short term, as Becky was saying about has the table tennis table arrived, but has it sort of impacted on the community? And then in the next sort of following years, we can look at what has been the long term impact on that. So it's up to you guys. You can take the recommendations, you can create your own, or you can just take this as sort of a fact finding report. Officers have obviously taken some little bits of data to respond back to you, and we'll have those in the minutes of the meeting. So I'll hand over to you guys just to make that decision whether you do want to make those recommendations to Cabinet or officers, if you want to tweak them in any way.
Thank you, Ella. Personally, I'm happy with that. There's a lot of notes I can see next to me. Obviously, we've got two officers and a Cabinet member here as well. Lots of robust discussion. I'm okay with moving forward with just taking those notes, but obviously it's up to the panel if they wish to take a different course. Councillor Wellband.
Could I just add that one thing about Kibworth, and I know it won't change, but just a note to Cabinet as a Kibworth ward member.
I don't personally see any harm with adding that footnote, Councillor Wellman. Councillor Mahal.
Before we wrap up, I just wondered with the underspend, who will be able to bid for that going forward?
Councillor Asher.
Yeah, we did cover this earlier. It's basically, so if there's an organisation that covers the whole district, they can apply for it now, whereas before they didn't really have any way of applying. And then it can also be applied for by, if people missed out last time, like the small villages, they can apply as well if they haven't applied before. And if there's a village that didn't apply, it can apply for its amount that it should have had last time if it wasn't ready.
Can the same applicants apply a second time?
Yes, potentially up to the limit of the spend of each of the original allocations.
Councillor King.
Yeah, so just on that point about the overspend, and you're saying, yeah, other group, the ones who haven't been able to and maybe hadn't applied, would that be that you'd be specifically sending a mail shot or an email shot to, in particular, parish meetings and the smaller parish councils who hadn't made any or no submissions have come in for a particular locality to say, look, there's still some underspend available, you still can make a submission, rather than those who've already had a successful round of bids, then having another nibble at the cake, if I can put it like that. Wouldn't that be more appropriate to do that as well and get them to get an application in now
We've already done that.
You've done-
So we've emailed them all, and if we haven't had any contact, we tried to call them as well. And we've also contacted some of the district-wide organisations that came to us at grant surgeries, and we've had to say, no, we can't apply at the moment.
Okay, all right, that's great. No, just thought I'd ask. Okay, thank you.
Okay, otherwise, panel happy with the recommendations that we've set out, the notes that we take. Okay, so next item on the agenda is item 6, services and communities overview and scrutiny panel draft work plan. Please note, hopefully you've got in front of you an updated Appendix A that has been tabled for this evening. I just want to draw the panel's attention to 2 items that need to be added to the work plan. Following the request by council for scrutiny to review the nature emergency declaration. So this will need to be added. The open space management strategy has been provisionally added to the next meeting of this panel. But there is now 3 items to consider at this meeting. It has been suggested that either the next 2 meetings consider 3 items each, or we could consider an extraordinary meeting of this panel to consider both items. So I'm happy to take any questions, additions or amendments that the panel would like to make. Councillor King.
Okay, I appreciate I'm not a regular member of this panel. I'm just guesting, as you'll be pleased to know, or some will. But so you said the 11th of December you were going to do the open spaces, which should have come tonight, as I understood. Is that fairly firm then that that's going to happen?
That's my understanding from the officer, correct?
I mean, personally, I wouldn't have thought doing 3. I mean, I'm harking back, but I mean, 3 items in a scrutiny meeting like this, I don't think that is over onerous, to be honest. Looking at what's on there. Yeah, I mean, what was the one you were going to do in March? You're going to do the nature recovery.
The nature emergency declaration.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense because you've only got a couple of, well, you've got the CCTV monitoring and it's just Q3 performance. Yeah. So I would have thought, when I thought performance went to the performance scrutiny actually, but are we doing them? Are we doing them at both?
Yes, please.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
Yeah, so I think it might have printed backwards accidentally because I got a bit confused there. But so the open spaces management that was meant to come to this particular meeting will be coming to the 5th of February. That's
I'm looking at the wrong one.
That's fine. I did the same thing.
There you go.
So yes.
Always
so
good, isn't it? If you look at the right page.
It
Sorry
printed
about that.
slightly awkwardly. Yeah, so that will be coming to the 5th of February. And then if everyone's happy, we can put the nature emergency the 7th of May. There are some specific ones that are dictated by the constitution that we have to take, but I would assume that those will come under one report. So technically it would be just the three reports you'll receive. If everyone's happy with that, to take it as that, or we can do an extraordinary meeting. Up to you guys. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, well, that would be my view as well. So if everybody's happy with the work plan as it is, I guess we can just move on from that one. And then the last thing on the agenda is basically the minutes, the non-public minutes from the last meeting. Now, whether we go into exempt session or not would wholly depend on whether anybody wanted to actually discuss or amend, question anything that was in those minutes. So without going into detail, is it likely that anybody's got anything to say on those minutes that would require me to put us into exempt session? Be a separate report. Yes, that's correct. We'll just, is it to do with the accuracy of the minutes? We're just debating the accuracy of the minutes. Okay, so
I would suggest you raise it directly with an officer if that's all right.
okay, but other than that, okay. Right, well, if there are no amendments to that, then I'm happy to, I can just sign those off, is that correct? And that would then take us on to any other business, which I don't believe that there is any. So the time is 7:20 and I call this meeting to end.